Josko Gvardiol is one of the best young defenders in the world, and now the most expensive defender in history! And because he is a brilliant ball-playing centre-back who can play at left-back as well, he slots into Man City's current tactical setup, where this sort of thing happens right here. But hang on a minute, that's where Nathan Ake plays, and he just signed a contract extension a few days ago. In fact, Guardiola only 2 months ago said that Nathan Ake is fundamental to Man City. He has been fundamental, Guardiola said. See? So why have they signed him then? Do Man City actually need the world's most expensive defender? Especially when you consider that they've lost Ilkay Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, who are two of the most important players last season. Wouldn't that huge amount of money be better off being spent on replacements to improve a team that's just won the treble? Teams always drop off after winning big things like that. So we know that they need to improve and get better. But first we should look at how Gvardiol does make them better and why they've signed him. And we can see it here. Look at all of this. Now, this important bit here is green. These are the bits you want to look at. Progressive passes, carries, long passes completed. All of this stuff is very important. And don't let the percentile for tackles confuse you either, because the best defenders don't actually make tackles because they are in the right position, or they're playing for teams who don't have to make that many defensive actions anyway. Look at Van Dijk, probably the best defender in the world. His tackles also low compared to Josko Gvardiol. Now Van Dijk's percentage of aerials won is a lot higher when comparing centre-backs, but Gvardiol, as we said, can play at left back as well, so this might be slightly skewed, and that's why that's a bit lower. And Gvardiol is also only 21 years old. Now, Van Dijk didn't get into the Southampton team until he was about 24, but Gvardiol has played for Croatia already. In fact, he was playing for Croatia when he was 19 years old. He was in the Dinamo Zagreb first team when he was 17. He's over 6 foot tall, he's massive, he's really quick. And on the ball, which is key for a Guardiola defender, he's very composed in possession, and he can play from the back. In fact, he is one of the most progressive centre-backs in Europe. And if you look around here, Gvardiol's right next to John Stones over here, but interestingly, you've got Aymeric Laporte right here. This is progressive passes per 90, progressive carries per 90. So Gvardiol's doing a bit of both. But as we say, look, Laporte's right here at the top end of this. So why is he not playing? Why is Gvardiol being signed to do the same sort of thing? Well, we know Guardiola has a type or a preferred profile of centre-back or full-back that he wants in his team, because in the past we know that he used to like overlapping full-backs that would do this, and then in recent seasons he's had them come inside to join in the midfield, the inverted kind of full-back thing that everyone's now doing. And Gvardiol fits both those profiles. He can overlap, he can come inside the pitch. He's a centre-back, but he can play at left-back, as he has done for Croatia. You might remember him from the World Cup, wearing a face mask. But we know that Guardiola's changed the system recently to more of a 3-box-3. So Rodri comes here, Stones goes in, and you get this sort of shape. Then you get Gvardiol on this left side here, so it's a really strong competition or replacement for Nathan Ake. And Guardiola's explained why he's kind of got rid of this full-back role. We think of full-backs, you need to have them in the team, but Guardiola has centre-backs now. He often has 4 centre-backs, even 5 at a time. And he explained it by saying that when you play against Bukayo Saka, Vinicius Jr., Gabriel Martinelli, Mohamed Salah, or Sadio Mane in the past, you need a proper defender to win duels 1v1. So fullbacks are often the kind of smaller player who can get up and down, good engines, but they're not quite as good or robust defensively. So now if you have all these big lads here, it gives you a real advantage, especially from high balls, but defending 1v1 against tricky players. So you got advantages at the back by having these big centre-backs there. But that's also what Nathan Ake does, and that's also part of the same quote where Guardiola calls him fundamental. So if we compare them, we can see what the differences are between the two players. Gvardiol is better or does more of carrying and dribbling the ball. He can carry the ball better, but Ake is better in the air or does more of it anyway. Gvardiol's a bit more intense out of possession, but Ake's maybe better in the air. So you've got a player who is better at certain things and maybe not quite as good at other things. You say potato, I say potato. But here's the thing, you see, because Gvardiol won't just replace Ake, because Guardiola doesn't have a first choice 11, certainly not in the Premier League anyway. What he does is slyly rotates his team all the time so they get lots of games to share the same positions. So if you look at defenders last season, what you see is that Akanji started the most games at 24. Ruben Dias only started 22 games. When we go to midfielders, do you think of Grealish how important he was last season? Only started 23 games. And so in reality, Gvardiol's probably going to start about 22 games in the Premier League, and Ake is going to start about 22 games in the Premier League, even though it doesn't really make sense because they're in the same position. But they basically job share. And the reason for this is so that all these players don't get overloaded with games, so they can be fresh and they're at a high level, and they don't get injuries that are caused by overloading them over time. And this is very relevant for this season because Manchester City, if they do well in all the competitions, as they probably will, could play a maximum of 67 games. That's quite a lot. But last season, the real competition they wanted to win, the big prize, was the Champions League. And that's where we see Guardiola's actual first 11, because these are the players who played the most games. And I've ordered them in a list that will annoy you because I didn't do it by a number. But you see, Grealish, clearly essential. Gundogan, essential. These are the guys that he relies on in his team as the first 11. And you could include Ake, because he had 7 games playing at left centre-back as well. But Gvardiol's the big new shiny toy, so he goes in there. So you can probably assume this is the team now. So Gvardiol makes him stronger as a better player, but also he just gives you more options for what you want to have in your squad depth. Another useful thing with him is that because he's so good on the ball, he might give Guardiola more flexibility at the back and how he builds up, because we know Stones goes from here and Diaz swaps over and they do that. But Gvardiol's very good on the ball, so what you might have is Diaz might get a rest, so he doesn't play so many games. Gvardiol comes in, Ake plays the left centre-back role, and then what you get is Stones doesn't go. Sometimes he stays, Gvardiol goes, and it just gives you a little bit of variation, maybe makes you a bit more unpredictable, and gives you different angles when you pass out from the back. So that's another possibility they might have there. Basically, Gvardiol's a great player with a high potential who can make City even better right now. And they have to be, because they just won the treble. They need to keep improving, to keep going. They can't stand still. And we know they have that kind of first 11 and they mix and match players from the second 11, but this second 11 isn't quite as strong for me as they were last season. We can see that the clear thing they need to improve on is probably this right wing position. Because at the moment, all they've got is Palmer, who is left-footed and comes inside here. They don't really have an outside right. So if they're looking to bring in other players, who could they buy to bring in and make sure that there's going to be competition for places in the first 11 and the second? Well, I have some players for you. Here's Nico Williams. He's a very good player. He's very much a winger. These stats show a player who is an outside right, who wants to play in the wing and run up and down that wing all the time. Then you've got the possibility of Jeremy Doku, a Belgian player, bit more of a forward, inside forward. He comes inside to score more. He's very tricky, very skillful. He'll play wide, but come inside off of the right. But the real option they might want to look at, possibly going forward, is Michael Olise, who can play as that wide right, but also play in the half space as number 8 or a 10. He kind of suits all the things that Guardiola wants, because Olise can cover both that right wing spot for Bernardo Silva, as Mahrez did. He can also cover as one of the 8s, as Foden kind of already does. He would suit them exactly what they want to do. These are the players that we think that Guardiola might now try and bring in to make City even better. Now, to buy one of those players, obviously Man City will have to spend some money, and they just spent rather a lot on Josko Gvardiol. In fact, he's now the most expensive defender in history. Or is he? Because Harry Maguire joined Manchester United in 2019 for £80 million. And what I did was look at the exchange rate in 2019, which was 1.09. And I barely know what I'm talking about here, but that converts into 86.9 million euros. If Harry Maguire was transferred today, the exchange rate, according to Google, is 1.14, and that would mean he'd be worth 92.5 million euros, which is slightly more than Josko Gvardiol. And so rather than telling you who the most expensive defender in the world is, what I thought I'd do is encourage you to battle it out in the comments and decide yourself who's more expensive and who is better, Gvardiol or Harry Maguire. We'll soon find out. And that's why Man City have signed Josko Gvardiol. Have fun!
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.